Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Nick, your host of On the Scene with Martini. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and don't forget, you are the scene. Hey guys, what's up? It's Nick, On the Scene with Martini. Today I'm here with Scott and Pete from Tripface, Long Island boys. How are you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. I appreciate you guys both coming on. I know scheduling was a little tough, but I appreciate it a lot. I guess we'll kind of just jump into the nitty gritty of like, how did you guys kind of get into not only the hardcore scene, but just music in general? What was your gateway?
For
Uh,
me,
go
well,
ahead, Scott. Mine's different than
so
yours, so
yeah. So for me, my sister was super into like new wave and post punk. So I kind of grew up on like the Smiths and the Cure and Echo and the Bunnymen. And my friends, Pete and I both grew up on farms. His farm was active when by the time he was a teenager. My grandparents retired, but most farm kids listen to like AC/DC and heavy metal. So my friends listened to heavy metal. I wasn't super into heavy metal, but I loved new wave. And then somewhere along the way between skateboarding and BMX, I got more into punk. And then after getting into punk, I heard the Cro-Mags in seventh grade, and that was like there was no turning back after that. Like that was the gateway.
Pete, was yours a little different then? Because I feel like
yeah.
everyone has their
So
own story
so
going into hardcore.
I grew up in a musical family. Everyone in my family was musical. My sister and all of her kids actually, they're all singers, they're all music teachers. My mother was musical. So I grew up really young playing piano, got into drums. Scott's pretty close with AC/DC and stuff on the farm, but for me it was just Van Halen, pretty much on repeat. Getting into hardcore, I had no idea what hardcore was. It never existed in my world, and just to sum that up, I pretty much got a phone call and showed up in a basement, and Scott was there, and that was my introduction to hardcore. That's how it went.
So when I was doing like kind of like a little bit of research here and there, you kind of came in like a second wave of Trip Face in a way. Um, was so that like that was your first time ever really listening to hardcore as a drummer?
Yeah. Yeah. So for how long did I was I mean, Scott might remember a little. I'm having a hard time. I think it was maybe 4 or 5 months. I was playing with Jay separately from whatever Scott was doing at the time, and so he had introduced me to a few things, but it was not. I mean, it was stuff that I can't even remember what it was. Whatever it was not hardcore, but it was close to it. And yeah, whatever transpired before I came along, that was pretty much it. I walked in and played a few songs that Jay was like, playlist, play that. And next thing you know, we're dragging me to a hardcore show. And I don't know what this is. This makes no sense, but
Then you
that's
get
how it
hooked.
went. That's how it went. Yeah.
Yeah, we I watched a video last night of like one of Pete's first shows with us, and I texted the group chat and was just like, Pete, were you like 12?
Uh,
Like how old were you? And I think Pete, you were like 13, right?
No, I think I was 15. I was 15 or just turned 16 when we kind of got started because we played for a long time in the basement. And I think when we just started playing, I ended up turning 17. Right? That's kind of what when we just started. Shelton's basement or whatever. I think I was still 16 at the time. So
I remember you getting
yeah,
your license.
yeah. That's why I said it was way before we actually got going that I turned that I could drive. So
Yeah.
I was gonna say now you can put on van duty right away.
yep.
But Pete's mom, the first time I
Yeah.
met Pete's mom, she was
Oh
like, "You are responsible for
yeah.
him." And I was like, "Oh," I was like, like 19 or 18-year-old kid, 19-year-old kid. I was like, "Oh God, I'm responsible for
Yeah.
another human." But
Yeah, especially in the
I,
hardcore scene, you never know what's gonna happen.
oh yeah, and that's not Pete's experience isn't unusual
Yeah.
because hardcore was so small back then, and where we lived was such a small. I mean, literally, we lived on the eastern end of Long Island.
Hmm.
We were the sticks, back in the day. It's a little different now. So just finding people to join your band, you were constantly grabbing any kid you could find who played an instrument to join your band and trying to get them into hardcore. Like giving them mixtapes and saying, hey, here's like a mixtape of like every 7-inch I own. Listen to this and tell me what you like. And that's, we recruited back then. That's what we
Hmm.
had to do.
So you guys didn't always start out as Tripface, right? Wasn't it? You guys also put out stuff with Offsides and Godhead, right? Or
So when the band first started, it was started actually by neither of us.
Yeah.
Our
Mhm.
friend Jeff and my friend Brian, they started it. They wrote the song Brotherhood. I worked at a record store with Brian. I had no intention of singing for a band ever. And Brian one day came to work and was just like, hey, you're singing in my band. And I'm like, oh, I don't like heavy metal. He's like, no, we played G.I. Joe Head Stomp and decided that we wanted to be a hardcore band. So the next week I went to his house, and that lineup kind of, that was, typical high school band. It just ebbed and flowed, and members came and went. Jeff was pretty much in it for a pretty long time. Jeff, of course, went on to, Jeff literally left the band to
Hmm.
start his music career.
Yeah.
And I had given up. I was a freshman in college, and Jay came up to me at a show, and him and I had a conversation. He had recorded a demo for us, and he's like, oh, and he, I guess, played drums for like a practice. I don't even remember this. And then he was just like, all right, I'm a guitar player. I have someone in mind to play drums. And that's kind of like where Pete came in.
When you
Yeah.
guys went back to like that second wave of saying, okay, like Tripface, that's where we're gonna go from here, was Offsides and God like that was just gone then? That was just kind of like different aliases for different because I mean, hardcore has a lot of revolving doors in terms of members, and especially you guys said growing up in that kind of area, it might have been hard to keep a consistent core group. Was that kind of just like now we're Tripface, we're gonna go from here, put out the demo and start playing shows?
Yeah, because I mean, Jay and Pete were so good at their instruments, and Dave too. Um, it's funny. I like watching the video last night. I'm like, oh, we were like, they added so much. And then it was like that moment of people getting into us and asking about us was when we were kind of like, oh, this could be like a real band. This went from like a bunch of high school friends playing garages to like now we can play actual venues. Pete, is that how you remember it?
So what I actually remember was, and again, it's different because this is what we talked about last time we got together was Scott was already in college. So like I was in high school and Jay was in college and working, if I remember, physical therapy. And him and I would get together every day and play. But in terms of my phone is going ballistic right now. I don't even know who's trying to get a hold of me, but it just keeps ringing. Um, what I kind of remember was showing up, playing, and hearing. I mean, I heard about everything. Um, there was nobody else that in my cohort, my age group, that knew what hardcore was. No one. No one in my school. No one I ever met that knew about it in terms of like what Scott said of playing is we played, and I don't remember any of those other names. Godhead, I don't know any. I don't know. I don't even remember that. That was all pre my existence. But my existence, and this is why it's so different. It's why I feel useless. Was tied pretty much to showing up, practicing. Scott comes home from college. We practice, go to school, go to work on the farm, go to Jay's. I mean, we played every day. Like we were talked about, Jay and I played every day, and then Scott would come out Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then eventually that's how we played. And then I went to shows. Like I didn't even go to shows. I had no idea until I think we went to some bookstore, Scott. That was a weird thing that I remember going out, right? It took me to something. But we ended up going to like the first show I ended up going to, not to play. I think Austin drove, if you remember, Scott,
I don't remember at
in
all.
a Volvo, right? In a Volvo. And that was the first show I went to. And I was like, I don't understand what this is, right? And I was like, this is so far off the bands we listened to versus what we were playing versus what I listened to. So anything like when you ask questions about like hardcore, it's pretty much from the time we started playing shows after I can talk about it. But anything Scott has he's a history from me showing up on stage prior. That's pretty much how it goes.
Yeah, and
When
it was too. It was just just kept
Hmm.
reusing songs and borrowing from
Yeah.
songs that had kind of been written in those prior bands.
Mhm.
And it's stuff that like we don't even remember. Like we got together and it was like, all these memories flooded back because it was like, oh my God, I forgot about that. And then, you know, I went in and pulled out a bunch of old stuff I had and watched videos. I was like, forgot that song existed. Wow, we used that riff later. You know, it was just it's fun to kind of look back
Yeah.
and see a bunch of high school kids doing something and then it becoming without them, they kind of pushed the boat along and the boat kind of took off after that.
Pete, did you always want to be in a band and this was kind of just an opportunity? Because Scott
Oh,
kind of came out of nowhere with the whole because you also played bass too, right, Scott? So that
Yeah,
wasn't like singing was kind of out of your norm. Was
yeah,
like your
totally.
idea, Pete, but I want to be a drummer or
this
was it,
is this is a bad question. You might I might need you to edit this, but
oh no.
so because hardcore didn't exist, and I wanted to play the drums, that's, you know, originally that's what I went to college for, was music, until I met people that go to college for music and realized I wasn't them. And that was the end of my musical career. But the sole purpose for me playing in a band was I was going to be a rock star. That's it. We're going to be rock stars. That was everything. And the hard, like that's what I talked about it. Hardcore was just that's how we're getting there. Because out again, like Scott said, where we grew up, yeah, there weren't a lot of people that played instruments. Like him trying to find a band, and his school was 5 or 6 times the size of mine, even though it's the next town over. Um, and there was nobody. There was no bands. There was no going out to listen to bands unless you were an old man and you went to some cover band right out by us. There was nothing. So it was rock stardom or nothing. So
Did you find it harder to having like a heavy metal background going into I assume you're practicing a lot of heavy metal and just metal in general. What do you find it harder or easier to kind of dive into hardcore?
so I never. I mean, Scott. I don't know if I ever played metal
Okay.
that I know of. I mean, literally,
Yeah.
when I say, you know, Van Halen was. Scott's gonna laugh. Van Halen. I mean, I listened to Van Halen, Rush, Dream Theater. Dream Theater
Okay.
came later, but like it was all band, you know, and I mean, I can listen to a lot of music, but the bands I would sit if I was like, I just feel like playing the drums and I want to practice anything, put headphones on, it would be Halen, it would be Rush, it would be one of these bands that were just kind of fun. Well, I don't know if Rush is fun. That's an odd question, but Van Halen's certainly a rock band you can play to it. So I never really played like metal, and I guess Metallica, but I don't know if you call Metallica heavy metal. I mean, I never did. So,
I feel like
you
it
know,
depends. Like in our scene, I consider like Metallica hard rock metal, but like in to like my dad, he'll be like, "Oh, that Metallica's so heavy, man," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, they definitely are." I'm like,
well,
"Wow,
let me see. What'd you say? You're 23?
yeah."
So Scott will agree, when you go back to the 90s, like heavy metal was like, it was heavy. Anything else was hard rock. So Metallica, like, that was heavy. Like their music was like, wow, this is real. This is metal. This is heavy. I never considered it, but compared to what you would hear on the radio or what, coming out of the 70s and 80s, that's could be considered heavy. So, but none of the heavy stuff from our time. I mean, Iron Maiden wasn't. I don't even consider that heavy metal. I
No,
did listen to Iron Maiden. I will have to
And
amend that. So
we'll throw that in there.
yeah,
and Pete was such a good drummer. I mean, he got accepted into Heart. He got
yeah.
accepted into a music school to play drums, which was the cool. And it was also like, you know, Jeff uh, was a great drummer, and that was the hardest thing. Like we had tried drummers out, and we're like, all right, it's not matching what Jeff brought to the band. So Pete, again, 15, 16-year-old kid comes in and starts playing like Jeff's parts and is nailing it. It was like, oh my God, like this is what we were looking for. Um,
When you guys kind of got towards the end where you were saying like Jeff left to pursue his career, which turned out he did fantastic with Zach and you know what I mean? Like all of his, he's in the heavy metal world. I'll give that to him. But did you find it like, okay, we're gonna get new members and continue this, or did you have like a little bit of discouragement, time off?
I was done. I
Hmm.
mean, college had started. I went to school like an hour from where I grew up. I was kind of like going to shows and kind of got back into I was skating again because that's the friends I made at college. I kind of went back to the things that I liked before I started playing music, skateboarding, photography, just like hanging out and going to shows. Like it's less stressful to go to a show when you're not in a band. So I fell back into that and was really like it to Jay's credit, like I guess he saw something and decided that like, hey, I'm gonna I'm gonna approach. I mean, it was unexpected because Jay had done sound at hardcore shows and punk shows and was, had been a friend, and he was a very good guitar player. So when he was just like, hey, I was just like, it was kind of like a compliment to have
Mm.
someone who's was that proficient at their instrument to want to be in the band. And originally, again, I totally forgot this. He was playing drums. But then to have Pete come in and be like, wow. And then, to Dave's credit, Dave and I were friends. We had been going to shows, but Dave was like a death metal bass player. Like if you listen to our bass parts there, he loved death. I mean,
Yeah.
he really like, so he was kind of like into technical death metal and really brought that in. That added like this whole new layer to everything we were doing. You had Pete who had a very, a little bit of jazz background, a little bit of Van Halen background,
Iron
um,
Maiden.
Iron Maiden,
Yeah.
Uh,
and so
more Halen than Iron Maiden, but yeah.
all of those things combined to kind of give us a sound that at that point no one had been doing.
Did you guys write together, like your process? Was it different from when you first started uh Tripface, all the other bands, compared to like where it was when you guys put out that demo with like your demo lineup?
That was some of it was borrowed older stuff because Austin stayed on and Jeff was cool with us kind of continuing with the songs we had written. Some of it was riffs that Jay brought in. A lot with like the drum and the bass, they completely changed the approach.
Mhm.
So it was the same song, same lyrics, same kind of guitar structure, but I think Pete and Dave both kind of added flavor to it. Do you remember? I
So the demo, you're going back now, getting old.
I'm trying
Uh,
to.
the demo, as I recall it, um, that now the funny thing is, you take a half step back. So Jeff and I went to the same school, so I had the benefit, and we're roughly the same age. So I had the benefit of knowing him, so it was a little odd, and he's always been phenomenal, even from the first time I ever saw him play drums. So it was an oddity to play his parts because I still listen to him now, and it's amazing. It sounds like the same as the first time I heard him. Um, but to when Jay was and Jay architected a lot of what I had to do. Like he would architect a lot of what I do. He would say like do it like this, change this. Most of I think Scott the drums were borderline identical. We didn't change too much of some of the Brotherhood, the classics. We'll call them the classics. I don't think we changed them that much. It was only I think some of those other ones. I don't even remember their names, half of them. That there may have been some change, and I think Dave's bass parts were probably different because um, most of that stuff was I think was around the drums. It was you and the drums, most of those songs, from what I remember.
When you sorry, Scott, so when you for bass, right? Were you those original bass parts yours then and they kind of just continued on then?
They kind of continue. So the demo that we recorded before Pete and Jay joined, that Jay engineered, I played bass on that.
Okay.
And we every once in a while, my friend Ross would sing, and we would call ourselves offsides, but we pretty much do the same songs.
Mm.
And so we had two bass players when we started, when we were a Godhead, and then those guys left. I think they both went to college. So Jeff and I would jam a lot with me on bass, and that's kind of how some of those songs got written. Um, and that was kind of the influence there, and of course that changed once the we I think we wrote two songs on the demo, Closed In and Still Here. Those songs we kind of wrote as a new unit. Like that was really, and that was a very much like a group effort. Like it was, I kind of like did the arrangement. Like I'd be like, stop playing this part so much, and then maybe let's not go too long here. Jay would bring in, riffs, and then Pete and Dave would kind of do their thing.
So you guys have prior to the demo, are you guys playing shows with Pete? Like, are you guys all still playing shows, or was there a period of time where you guys were just like recording and waiting for that?
No, I think we did a couple shows. We
I
did.
don't I don't think so.
Really? You think we recorded the demo right off the bat?
I think we did Shelton's Garage was the first show. I don't think we played. I'm trying to remember. I don't think we played many, if any, shows before we had a demo. I think we played a couple odds and ends to feel out how we played, and then I think we put the demo out and went. I can't remember that 100%.
I'm gonna go with Pete's
Yeah.
memory because he's younger than me.
We didn't
So
we didn't play out a lot before the demo came out. We played some small, I think we played in a house, we played a basement. It wasn't
Sounds
the
right.
backyard. We did a bunch of weird things, and then
Yeah.
it was like I think, I mean, I don't know. When it comes to demos and shows, I feel like if it's not Scott and Jay, they would know everything. I don't remember that. Play the
it's
drums
it's
and
possible
do
because
it. So
Jay had
uh,
recording gear,
yeah.
so recording the demo was easy. So I would guess we probably only did a few shows before we did the demo.
So Pete, your first show going into it though, like you have the demo out, was there like a feeling of you have to kind of, I don't want to say, I mean, I'll say like keep up to like the standards of your predecessor, like, or was it kind of a new band, new wave we're
So
going?
from the moment if from the moment I started playing with Scott and with Scott, because I'd already been kind of jamming with Jay and Dave had come out. I think Dave and Jay and I played before you came out, Scott. I think, if I remember correctly. I think we played a lot, and then you came out and cast the final vote. Pete's accepted. But if I remember correctly, I never had any pressure to do what had been done in the past. There was never any, you have to do it this way. There was never any of that. You had to do that. It was kind of just like it was like, all right, we sit down and play, which has always kind of been the way it was with us for the most part.
Did you guys
So,
have like a set like shows or something that like really like brings back the memories of Tripface? Like these were like your kind of like your the time of like, okay, we're doing this. People are, have you guys got a great response from the Long Island community, from the New York community in general? I mean, you guys were on a few record release shows and just stuff like that. Was there a few shows or anything that kind of stuck out?
We put together, and I mean by we put together, classic VFW show where we brought in the back of Pete's pickup truck, we brought plywood and we made a stage out of plywood and milk crates, which I don't suggest to anyone. It's a great it's you could bounce and you could stage dive really, really well, but when you're the band, it's a little
mhm.
scary. It was a VFW in Medford, which is probably about 20 minutes from where we live.
Remember that?
And it was with another band from our town called Grid.
Mhm.
And then I think Mind Over Matter played, Silent Majority played. And again, we booked the show because we wanted to play with those bands. And we just had made a bunch of copies of the demo and we played. And of course, our friends were singing along, but then like more people who I didn't recognize were dancing. And I was like, all right, this is cool. Like this feels like a hardcore show. And we didn't set up a merch table. We didn't have t-shirts. We had demos in like a case in the trunk of my car in case somebody asked for one. And I remember the set being really good and really fun, and then stepping off stage, and all these kids came up wanting to buy a demo because I had said, hey, we have a demo out. And then I had to run to the car and out of the trunk of my car sold the whole suit, suitcase of demos. And that's in my brain. I was like, wow, this is pretty like this is the start of something.
Was that Oldsmobile you had?
No, it wasn't the
What
Oldsmobile.
was that?
That might have been the Ford Fairmont.
I don't remember. I thought it was the Olds.
Yeah. No, it might have been.
Didn't you have an Olds?
Oh no, it was Mike's. It's Mike's Caprice.
A Caprice, that's what
Because
it
I
was. Yeah,
had the S10.
I knew it looked like that. Yeah,
I
yeah,
had the
yeah.
red S10, but Mike
Yes,
drove me to the show, and
that's
that
right.
was
Okay.
and you gotta our local scene was an hour away.
Hmm.
So for us, just playing a local show was a car trip.
Yeah.
And that's why we did the show at the Medford VFW because it was still far out east, but it wasn't so far that all the Nassau kids wouldn't come to the show. But that was really, I don't know, Pete, do you remember a show that stuck out?
In the beginning, if you want to say, or I mean, the shows that I remember. So you sit behind a drum set, you don't really see much, and then when you start playing, it's. I was I'm at my church and they're talking about like their guys on the worship team. They're like, "Oh, we got the monitors, we can hear everything." And I'm like, "I heard nothing." Like I would just look over and someone would be doing something like they're still playing, okay, right? You couldn't hear anything, but in terms of stuff sticking out, in terms of when the reactions came, there was a show. I want to say it was either the PWAC or I don't remember where else we played. Had a semi higher stage, and I remember all I remember was Scott not having to sing. That's the first time I remember something, because every time he would put his hand out, people would sing. And that's probably the only visuals I have other than some oddball shows where people would get really close to the drums, like overhead close, and you'd be like, there's a lot of people on stage. But other than that, I don't really remember much about the shows. When we set up and everything, and then you start playing, it's just everything closes in, there's lights, and then the show's over.
Do you ever have an incident when someone like took out the drum set or almost did?
No, but Scott, we were just talking about this. There was a show, it was at the PWAC, and I remember this because there were people, I remember the stage, there was like a loft. There must have been rooms, right? People would sit up behind the drums. And no one else remembers this, but they should. And I remember there were so many people on stage. It was Tom, Silent Majority. I think Scott was there. Dave had to go behind the bass cabinet. Jay was behind the bass cabinet, and the people kept pushing so hard you had to hold the rack. I used to use a Gibraltar rack for the drums. They were holding the rack, and a kid came over someone up over the left. So I had to hold the kid up with my hand over the hi-hat, and we were still playing. Everyone kept playing. Like somebody was singing and they kept playing, and I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, what is happening? That was a bizarre one.
Yeah, and I think that was the same
Yeah.
show that Jay's guitar went out,
Oh yeah,
and
and
it was
I
just
kept playing.
drums and
Yeah.
bass, and it was the timing was perfect because it was a sing along,
Yeah.
and a bunch of people have brought that show up like they couldn't believe without guitar and just drum and bass. There's a wall of kids singing along, and
Mhm.
we were lucky. We started to get big as the Long Island scene started to get big, so we really kind of rode this already like
Mhm.
huge wave coming along.
When I think of Long Island scenes, I always think of like Silent Majority. Like that's the one that always sticks out to me. Was your like brother band Grin then? What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it was great in the very beginning, but then they broke up.
Okay.
Indecision was kind of our,
Indecision. Yeah.
yeah, Indecision was our brother band. I mean, we got on Exit Wreckage at the same time. We did a lot of weekends together. We did a short tour together. That was kind of, we were kind of
Mhm.
attached at the hip. Pete and Pat were like, it was like they came out of the same, like they were cloned
Yeah.
out of they were in the same
Yeah.
clone army, which was like hilarious because we would just laugh when they would start talking. So that was kind of like Indecision, even though they were a Brooklyn band, and we kind of one of our first Long Island shows with them was
Mhm.
Bonkers. It was another VFW all show where I was like, oh my God, both bands were kind of headlining, and I was really nervous about that. And then we packed the place, and the place totally exploded when both bands played. So um I would say Indecision was probably our brother band. We were friends with Silent Majority. We were friends with Clockwise. We were, we were friends with all the bigger Long Island bands. We were good friends with Glassjaw. Dave went
Mhm.
on to tour with Glassjaw. Glassjaw was like our little, our young friends that would
Mhm.
come see us. And then another band that I don't think gets enough notice is Motive, who did
Yeah.
a CD and a 7-inch on Exit Wreckage. They were kind of I would say they were our little brother band.
Mm.
And they were amazing, and Ryan filled in for us every once.
Mhm.
You guys kind of being like in the, I don't want to say the start, but towards the beginning of which now is Long Island is probably, in my opinion, one of the biggest scenes in hardcore. Did you guys find it was a lot of DIY? You had to learn how to get yourself out there because again, you said you're on the east side of Long Island, and I don't think people realize once you get past New York or like New York City, I mean, there's hours. Like to go to like Montauk, it's like 5 hour, 4 or 5 hour. Like it's a long time. Did you guys find it difficult kind of getting your name out there, learning stuff?
Yeah, we had to really push ourselves. It helped that Jay did sound at shows, so he kind of knew Artie and George, and had a good connection there. So we were lucky with that. But yeah, I mean, just getting out there, you just uh, we played a set on a college radio station, and it got recorded and then released as a split with Grid. That helped get our name out. But yeah, I mean, we really did have to work extra hard, not just in promoting ourselves. No Instagram, no
Yeah.
Facebook. It's literally like handing stickers out to
Mhm.
people and handing people demos. Like literally, I would go to shows, and if I saw someone who I'd seen at a lot of shows, I'd hand them a demo and be like, "Hey, check out my band. Let me know what you think." So there was a lot of that, but also just getting to shows. We were lucky. We had a van, but it wasn't always reliable. I mean, some of the shows we played was, two cars,
Mhm.
and that was, sometimes two pickups. with gear in the back. So it was a lot of hard work. It was really DIY. And again, we recorded the full length. We recorded that on our own. Jay had already had an equipment. His dad basically built a studio, like physically built a studio in the basement. And we did, and that was like one of the best experiences we could have. We spent weeks, months on that record, but it was all learning. We were all learning how to do it as we went along.
Yeah.
What was there like something that going back you guys wish you like promoted in a different way or like anything honestly, like something you would change, not from like the band's perspective in terms of like members or songwriting, just in terms of like advertisement, more merch, stuff like that.
I don't know as if any of that would have made a difference. The progression, I mean, if you look at it from the start of your band to the end of your band, the progression was already in an upward trend. Or you could say the ball was rolling. The ball's coming down the hill, and there's not much getting in the way other than you just stop. And Scott was right. Scott probably from and again, this is why it's odd because in the beginning of the band, I was in high school, so Scott was in college. So Scott would go to shows whenever. I would be out east, and we would practice. And I think one of the things that made it interesting is rather than focusing on promoting, and Dave, we would, Jay certainly did what he did in terms of the sound and doing stuff out there, but we would sit and practice until every day for hours upon hours. I mean, his parents must have been sick of us. I guess they weren't because they didn't kick us out, but hours we would practice and every single day. And then Scott would do his thing. He would come out. So we maximized every amount of available time to practice and be prepared just so that when Scott came out, we could hone in that one piece. So going to the shows, yeah, it took a while, but in terms of what you would do differently, there was nothing to do. Like we put 110% into this end, and Scott, I mean, we had to maximize everything because every other band that I knew, at least, they all lived around the same area. They get together and practice. We didn't have that luxury. We had to literally travel. Scott had to travel from the city all the way out east to practice. So, I don't know when it started that you'd meet at the first show, right? You'd meet us at usually the Friday night show. Then he would come out Saturday. We'd have to practice all day Saturday and a little bit Sunday, and then we usually played on Sunday. So all time was maximized. So in terms of like merch and that, it just whichever way you want to look at the ball's going or
Yeah.
you're going uphill. I didn't see anything that could have made a difference, at least on my side.
They let
But
me design one shirt that was terrible. So that's like my
Pete knew exactly what you were talking about, by the
I
yes,
you
he
know
did. Yeah, he
He knew
did. And
exactly.
I don't know what I was thinking at the
yeah,
time. But no, I mean, I
yeah.
thought like we did a good job we had an aesthetic that was like basic. We were lucky, like Tom from Silent Majority, he designed a lot of our shirts and he really like he got it. So like our merch went and it went really, really quick. Mike Dubin, who's pretty well
Hmm.
known, he was taking pictures of us very early. So we had all these great shots really early. I mean, again, there was momentum because we worked hard at it, but at the same time, there was a little bit of luck around it
Mhm.
that we made connections with people who would go on to do huge things later on. We just made connections with them and they kind of helped us progress and build our image.
In like the 90s, was there a band that you guys kind of looked up to that was more of like a bigger hardcore band, not in the New York way?
Some of us really loved Bloodlet.
Okay.
I did. And so it didn't influence us in terms of style, but it definitely influenced us in terms of like playing ability. Because again, it's the late 90s. Now all of a sudden these hardcore bands are coming out that are they're proficient at their craft. I mean, and the bass player whose name I can't remember right now played a fretless bass and played all these like amazing progressions. So that really, I think for Dave and I, but also with the drumming, I think we were all like, ooh, we don't want to sound like them, but ooh, we want to play as well as them.
I think there's one band in particular, and Scott knows which CD I lost my hearing to. And that was VOD. I think I honed in on them really early. And yeah, I mean, I listened to them a lot. So yeah, I would probably say if there was a band like that from the scene, if you want to
Yeah.
call it that, that was probably one that I spent a lot of time listening to. because I love the drumming. I thought they were great. So
Yeah,
I
we
feel
got together.
Brandon was good. Yeah.
We
yeah.
got together for lunch, and I think we talked about VOD for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Just because if you're a Long Island band, they just huge influence in a
Yeah.
band. I probably listen to them now more than I did back in the day. But a band I really appreciate.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone has a band, and especially in a hardcore scene, that just like really connects with them quickly too. Like mine is probably Quicksand. Like
Great
I
band.
I love Slip. Like that's probably like I'm a big record collector. It's probably my most spun record, but it's like you just need one album to kind of get yourself in the door, and then you have once you see a flyer and you see, eight other bands on the bill, you're like, shit, I gotta like one of them, right? So
Yeah.
we just keep going from there. But I want to go back a little bit just in terms of when you guys put out the full length, um, your I would say your most popular song in the community is probably Brotherhood, right? Did you guys expect that to be the song? Or was that kind of just like, wow, why is everyone singing to this right now?
It was our oldest. I mean,
Okay.
literally, written very early, when we were called Godhead. I wrote the lyrics in Brian's parents' kitchen and then went to Jeff's house and sang them. So it had a hook. It had a good chorus that people could remember and sing along to. So, that always got a great reaction. I actually think Foundation is probably the song that people most remember us for. And it's because of all the cool harmonics that Jay did on it and the way we structured it with the kind of open-ended, with singing with no one, with no music. So that's those two songs. Those were the two songs where we're like, all right, what are we going to end the set with? Are we going to end the set with Brotherhood, or are we going to end it with Foundation?
Hmm.
Did you guys towards the end, not towards the end, but like once you guys started not playing like such small shows, kind of get the idea of like repetition in terms of set list design, stuff like that? Was that just kind of coming natural then at that point?
I think Jay was pretty good at kind of reading the room and saying, "Hey, this is the structure of the songs." Because again, we'd be in the 90s when you were a hardcore band, people didn't get to hear you before you came to town. Now you
Hmm.
see a band on a flyer, you go to whatever your streaming music site is and you listen to them and go, "Ooh, I like them. I'm going to sing along to this song." Back then that didn't happen. They were hearing you for the first time at a show. So when we played out of town, it was like, "Oh, we're gonna do these." And sometimes we didn't play Brotherhood when we played out of town
Hmm.
because if everybody's not flipping out and singing along, that song is a little boring. So it would be like, all right, or we'd look at the bands we were playing with and say, okay, this is the style. So here's the 7 songs we're gonna play. And we like to play short sets, just because we liked wanting more, but also we were so exhausted at the end of our sets that like a 20-minute set. I mean, when we started playing later and it was like over 30 minutes, like we were because we put everything into what we did.
So I
Hmm.
guess sorry. Just fast forward, I guess, from there, where in 2025, you guys made the Instagram, everyone started following you and stuff. What was kind of like the spark that was like, okay, let's get this back together?
It was so John from Frozen Screams
Mhm.
contacted me like via Instagram and just said, "Hey, can I re-release the demo?" He kind of told me the story of how he got into the band. He's like, "I do these like," and he does really cool stuff, like a really cool. They're projects. They're not releases. They're just these very cool things. He's like, "I'd like to re-release the demo, and I'd like to do a zine, and I'd like to interview all of you guys and maybe do a history of the band." And I was just like, Pete was the only person I talked to after we broke up. We lived together for 2 years and then we kind of stayed in touch for a little bit. We were good friends in college. I really took Pete's mom's command of taking care of him very seriously.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
reached out to Pete, I think on Facebook, because that's how all old
Hmm.
people stay in touch. And I was like, "Hey, give me your email." And then next thing I know, it's an email with Jay involved. And then, and what did you and Jay think, Pete?
Um, wow, it's interesting. So, barring a bunch of history that goes along with this, it's been a long time, and everyone just fell out of touch. And then even if you wanted to stay in touch, you were too far out of touch to really want to do anything. And then you don't really have time to get in touch because you're doing everything, and there's really no point because yeah, it was, that was, go back to 98, 99. I mean, it's going to be 30 years in a couple of years, which is going to be here tomorrow. So
Yeah.
it's been a long time, and everybody's, Scott has kids, I have kids. Um, everybody's married, everybody's, I got all kinds of stuff to do. My phone was, thankfully it stopped. It's just like, I can't do this guys tonight. I'm doing this thing tonight. So everybody's got stuff. And for some reason, it was just like, you sit down and you're like, all right, here's this. Scott said all this stuff. And how, I think you asked me for Jay's email.
Did
And
I? Okay.
I was like, yeah, email him. So go ahead. And, Jay was just like, all right, we'll sit down or we'll figure stuff out. And where Dave, I mean, you must have reached out to Dave separately. I don't
Dave
know where.
reached out to me.
Okay, so then there was it's like a triangle. You've got a little triangle happening, and it's literally like we just got together.
Yeah.
It's like
Jay,
I'm 16 again. We just got
Jay,
together.
Jay and Pete and I were
Yeah.
talking, and then Dave Instagram messaged me, and I didn't see it for weeks because I didn't follow. I didn't know what his Instagram handle was, so it's sitting in
Hmm.
this box. I go in and go, oh, let me see the random things that have been sent by bots, so I can delete them. And it's Dark Dave, and I'm like, who the hell is Dark Dave? And then I opened the message, and it was like a super nice message, and I was like, oh crap, give me your email because I'm already talking to Jay and Pete. So,
Yeah.
that was really, I mean, I took the ferry across the sound and met them for lunch, and God, we spent like 4 hours together.
We could have spent all day.
Yeah, we could have.
We could have. It was it lit. So the funny thing was just like when I played in the beginning and I was a little kid and Scott came in. It's like Scott came in. That's what it felt like. I was like, "Up, Scott's here. He just showed up, and we're going to go do something." But that's actually how it felt, which is unbelievably bizarre because I don't have any other structure, entity, group, organization, or people I belong to where you just 28 years later, when you're sitting down, you have the same level of comfort. I guess is
Yeah,
the best way to put it that you had from 30 years ago. It was odd, but it was fun.
yeah.
And
It
now we're
was,
here talking to you. So
and
Yeah.
it was, we were at a coffee place, and
yeah.
I said to Jay, it could be 1998, and we're
Hmm.
sitting in the subway in Matatock, because that's where we would always
Yep.
go and eat. Because it was the only vegetarian and vegan food that you could find in the 90s.
Hmm.
um it was really bizarre. It was really
Yeah.
nice though, because you kind of realize like, wow, these were my good friends in high school. These are people who I spent a considerable amount of time with on the side of a road in Miami. Just like we did some bizarre stuff,
Hmm.
and it was very, very cool to reconnect with people who were like my core group of friends
Yeah.
for a big part of my high school into college life.
So I guess the plan now, like the start was you said Frozen Screams. Is it going to be like a vinyl, digital? Because right now you guys have Some Part Sorrow on Apple Music, but when I was listening to it a few weeks ago, like I know like Brotherhood, it's just jungle sounds. Like there's no
The
words or
tracks got messed up when they got
yeah.
uploaded.
So are you guys gonna plan on doing like a re-release on stuff like of all of that too?
So Frozen Screams is going to do the demo and some extra stuff. We haven't decided what's going to be on that. Um, we are planning on getting the LP remastered, and maybe some of the 7-inch songs too, because we really liked those. And we're talking to some people about them doing, the digital release. And I mean, my goal is to kind of get Some Part Sorrow as an LP.
Hmm.
We did CD and cassette, and I was this, I collected vinyl, and the fact that it was like the one LP I'm on isn't going to be on vinyl is killing me. And it's the one thing that gets brought up to me all the time, which is, when are you guys going to put that out on vinyl? So I mean, for me, that's kind of like, that's my big goal. I'd like to see that happen. But for right now, what we have really planned is just the demo with the zine and just kind of like a cool project, and then getting everything remastered digitally and up and correct track listings and all those songs there.
So when you guys stopped, or sorry, towards the end as well, were you guys like a straight edge band, or did you guys follow like those practices afterward? Like, are you guys also vegetarians and
So I stopped being straight edge pretty much the week after after they kicked me out. It was, I got kicked out of my band. And I went to the bar with a bunch of my high school friends, and I'm sitting at the bar, and actually Ross, who sang for Offsides, looks at me and just goes, "It's time for you to have a beer." And now I don't drink, I don't do anything. I won't claim straight edge. I'm married to somewhat hardline straight edge lady, so it's also somewhat not. I'm allowed to do things, but it's easier in that regard. But yeah, I mean, we were very much a straight edge band up until the end, and then like I said, those guys stayed straight edge for a while. I was there for Pete when he broke edge.
I was
Uh,
just gonna bring that up. I turned 21, and Scott brought me a handle of Jack Daniels, and that was the end of that. Day I turned 21.
but I think Jay is
Yeah.
definitely still straight
Jay
edge.
Jay is still straight edge. He's still vegan. I was never vegetarian or vegan. Let's just get that out there, okay? I don't want that. I don't want that out in the public that I was may have been considered. No, I always ate meat. So
I don't think
Yeah.
I could ever, like, the one thing about that is I don't think I could ever do the vegetarian part. I could do no drinking. Like I could get away with no drinking. That's fine. I love Diet Coke. Sure. But the second you say like no steak, no tacos with meat, I'm like, I don't know what to do.
I stayed vegan after I broke edge. I stayed vegan for
a while,
a while. Yeah, till
a
I
while.
graduated from college because I was
Yeah.
vegan when Pete and I lived together. And then after that, I was vegetarian probably till like my mid 30s.
Okay.
So that was, that I always stuck with. That was important to me, but for health reasons, I really needed to diversify my diet.
My buddy always said like, did you have like a trigger like when you were a vegetarian? You're like, oh shit, like I smell like my buddy's is Chick-fil-A. Like he almost cracks like every 3 years because of Chick-fil-A.
Pizza was when I was vegan
Mhm.
pizza. And I love pizza.
Mhm.
Pizza was hard when I was vegan. And we would go and you'd find a pizza place that made vegan crust and you get cheeseless pizza and it just was not the same. So when I stopped being vegan, my mom was just like, it was literally like she made me an egg sandwich. I'm like, this is amazing. And then it was get in the car, we're getting pizza for lunch because you haven't eaten pizza in like 4 or 5 years. So yeah, that was the
Yeah.
pizza was always hard. Someone would open up a box because that's how you fed bands back then.
Yeah.
And they would open up a box of cheese pizza, and then my heart would just go, ah, like I need that.
Pete's on his third slice. He'll take Scott's.
Yeah, I may have been mean. I was just like, I'd chow down in front of them, and I might have even said like, "You guys like your grass? I mean, you want some more grass?" I was bad. And then they tried to make me vegan at one point by force. It didn't work, but so
But now, Scott, you're a big pizza guy, right? Like
Yeah, huge. That's
that's
my
like your side quest in life right now is
yeah.
rating
I've
every
got a
pizza place, right?
I've got a 13-year-old who loves pizza. Like pizza is life for him. So Connecticut is, and I will agree, Connecticut is the pizza capital of the world. I know the New Yorker in this conversation will disagree with me. But I really do stand by that. So we're trying to eat pizza in every town in Connecticut. Now, some towns in Connecticut don't have pizza. It's 169 towns. But so then we find out what the locals order, then we get a pie from there, and then we bring it to a park or something. But we're literally trying to eat pizza in every town in Connecticut.
Was there one that stuck out to you so far that's like your bread and butter?
Connecticut pizza, if you want to try Connecticut pizza, everybody talks about Frank Pepe, but no, Zapardi's in West Haven, Connecticut, and I drive there like just to get a pie. Like from where I work, it's like a half. So Zapardi's, if you could take the ferry and then like 5 minutes, you're there. But if you're in Connecticut and you want to try Connecticut pizza, Zapardi's hands down is the pizza you need to try. You will understand why Connecticut is the capital of pizza.
Fair enough. I'm from Philly, so like cheesesteaks is our thing. And everyone always says like Geno's and Pat's, which is like the tourist trap, and then there's a 2 hour wait in Angela's down South Philly, and everyone that's kind of that's our out too. So going from okay, Ben is done. You guys are at the end of college or
Pete was
no.
still in college. I was
You had two
I
years. You had 2 years left.
yeah, I had two
I
years
was a
left in
so
college.
I was
I was
soft.
a super senior.
You were when you graduated.
Yeah, I was a super senior because
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
transferred
I was a sophomore. That's right.
I transferred from Pace in the city when
Yeah.
once Pete decided he was going to University of Hartford. I was also like close friends with people who live in Hartford. I dated somebody who was going to the college. I was just like, I'm just going to transfer there because that'll just make life
Hmm.
easier. Because I really wanted to finish school, but at the same time, the band was important to me.
Mhm.
So transferring over to the University of Hartford was a really good decision because then Pete and I could go home together for practice and shows.
Just going, the reason why I went back to that was because I was wondering, was there a point in time when you guys were like, are we gonna not do school anymore and just do the band? But yeah, I feel like that's a thought that probably goes through a lot of people's minds that I thought
And
ever kind of come across. Well,
that was
Pete definitely because he wants to be a rock star, but
yeah,
Uh, I did, but I had th thankfully my parents were a little wiser than I was at the time, and I was
yeah.
like, I don't care, I'll go. We're going on tour. I'll tour. I'll quit. And they were like, there's not a chance in hell that's you're doing that. Not a chance. You're not investing this much money and you're gonna can it. So, thankfully, because life works out a certain way. But no, I would have
yeah.
quit. But
I wouldn't have.
you
I
know,
I mean I had a GPA that I needed to have
mhm.
like I was very into school. I was not into school in high school, but I got to college and I fell in love with school. So it was really hard. I'd study in the van. Pete did
Mhm.
not.
It's the
But
truth.
I studied in the van all the time. I'd write papers while we're driving to shows because I wanted to finish school. It was important. Again, kind of like Pete, it was really important to my mom. And my mom
Mm.
was single mom she put two kids through college and law school and grad school. Like my mom's working her butt off. It's like I remember once I mentioned to her, "Hey, can I take a semester off so we can go on tour?" And she just looked at me and didn't say a word, but the look alone was like, okay, that's not happening. Like,
Hmm.
that's not happening at all. So we talked about it. The pressure was there. And especially towards the end when we were
Hmm.
talking to bigger labels. And that was a big stressor for me, like where it really caused me anxiety because it was like we were really getting pushed to do this thing full time.
Sorry, I'll cut that out. I don't know why. I just like got like a brain fart. My bad. So sorry, I'm going through my thing right now. I'll cut all this out. Oh, okay. So you guys, not with the lineup that you guys have for your demos, your original demo lineup, you have played shows since then. Do you guys ever plan on playing with the demo lineup again?
No, Jay is so
Okay.
busy that
Hmm.
not Jay, yeah, everybody's so busy.
Everybody's busy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. I mean, everybody is just busy. So that lineup, no, I mean, I keep in touch with those guys, but like Jeff, I mean, Jeff's not going to do it. Jeff's got so much on his plate. We actually talked about this in a text message before, because we've had a couple podcasts ask for interviews. At this point, playing live is like we're not going to say no, like it's never going to happen, but we're so busy in our regular lives. I still go to shows, but I go to shows like once a month.
Yeah.
I love hardcore, still listen to hardcore, but taking time off like from taking my kids to rugby practice so that I could practice, that's just not it's not in the cards right now.
Hmm.
And I did bands later. I blew my voice out. I don't even know if I could sound the way I sounded on doing Tripface stuff. It's just I don't know if that's going to be there. So we don't want to rule it out because I would love to play with those guys again. But at this point, we just want to reconnect as friends
Mhm.
and also get some of these kind of like fun projects done while we're doing it.
Pete, did you
Yeah.
continue? Oh, sorry,
Go
you go.
go ahead, ask a question. I think I know what you're gonna ask, but
Well, I was gonna ask if did you continue to go to shows too then?
no. I
No.
after Tripface kind of stopped, Jay and I and Dave, we kind of tried to finagle some stuff together and it didn't work. I look back and I was like, man, it just there was nothing there. And I think the last time I played my drums was the day I took him out of Jason's basement because he had a studio in his basement, and that was probably 25 years ago. I haven't opened the cases up since. Never sold them, but I wouldn't get rid of them. But I still have them. I haven't touched sticks in years, 20 years at least. So
Did you
But
feel
again,
like you guys kind of felt like not disconnected, but not as connected to the music scene as when you started then?
I don't know if it was that. For me, it was going to shows was always for me it was more of like a learning thing. Um, I didn't necessarily connect. It was certainly not the way Scott or Dave or even Jay connected with the scene. I would go and I would watch the musicians play for the musicianship and watch the people play and just you're taking it all in. The perfect example, I went to see the Two Cellos in Connecticut at Foxwoods, and they had the drummer come out for a little bit. I ended up watching the drummer more than I watched these guys that I went to go see because I'm just watching, and that was always what I did. So I'm going to a show wasn't about like, oh, I'm going to get in the pit or I'm going to go sing along. I would just sit and be like, oh, let me watch what he's doing. Oh, look how he does this. Look at how they sound. This was slow. This was sped up. There was always, and there was no reason to do that anymore. So I really just, and again, the connection to the bands that I was connected with, they were big bands. They didn't come around every day. Um, Scott, Jay, and Dave, they were essentially my friend group in hardcore, and it was already fractioned. You know, Scott and I were in Connecticut in college. Dave was, I don't know where Dave lived at that time.
Yeah,
Scott,
he might
I
have already,
think,
I think he was touring with Glassjaw.
no, right when we broke
No?
up, I think I don't know if he was living
In Mastic.
yeah, I think he had moved already. So everybody was kind of already separating. So I was just like, I'm not going to shows. And you know what happens when you go to a show after you break up? You get
It's the worst.
400 people coming up to you, one and all this gossip, and none of us really wanted to have that. I think I tried going with Jay once to I think it was like a catering hall place. I don't even remember somewhere, and it was awful. I mean, it was just non you couldn't even watch the show because there were too many people trying to what they're picking at you and it after that I was just like I don't have an interest in that, so that
Pete,
was
we
it.
sound very similar in terms of like going to shows. Like,
Yeah.
I am not a mosher. I am not a two-stepper. I respect the culture. I
Hmm.
respect all of that. I went to see No Pressure in Philly at Underground Arts, and the drummer and guitarist, we talked prior to the show. They came up to me afterwards and they were like, "You were the most calm hardcore fan I've ever seen." Because I'm sitting on the side, I'm like arms crossed, I'm just bobbing my head. That's
Hmm.
all. And everyone else is like beating the shit out of each other.
Yep.
I'm just like, I don't want my face broken right now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I was the kid at the show stage diving and
uh,
two-stepping. That
Were,
was
were you a crowd killer or
I
was
was
that?
not because crowd killing in the 90s, crowd killing wasn't really a thing.
Hmm.
And also like we went to a lot of New York shows, so you had to be really careful. Like we
Yeah.
were around a lot of scary people. So, you danced hard, but you danced respectfully. So crowd killing didn't become popular in like until, way in the 2000s. And I'm curious on how we would have reacted if that was
mm,
happening at our shows in the 90s.
I kind of wish it was still like the 90s in that term then. To stay away from the crowd killing. I feel like now people think it's like okay, and like you just have to like protect yourself at all times instead of like actually enjoying the music, which is
mm.
like why we're all there for.
Yeah.
But I won't get into that because that's like more political than politics itself. And well, I appreciate
I have friends who are crowd killers who will get mad at
Yeah.
me for stating anti-crowd killing sentiment.
fair enough. Well, I appreciate you guys so much for coming on. Guys, but down below there will be links to Tripface's Instagram. Okay, that's probably the best way to stay up to date now. And then give a follow to Frozen Streams too. You'll see all of, do you guys have like a timeline roughly of when? Nothing yet.
Yeah, Jay is kind of going through his archive and we're working kind of off of that.
I got you. Well, give a follow, and then on my Instagram, when stuff pops up, I'll be posting stuff. And yeah, there you go. Well, thanks, guys. Until next time.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.